In this video, I'm going to show you how to add movement to your still images. So let's get into it. So we'll begin inside of Adobe Photoshop. So once you've got a photo inside of Adobe Photoshop, you just first want to begin by unlocking this padlock. So we're going to unlock that, and then we're just going to go over to the quick selection tool. We can increase the brush size up here if we need, or we can decrease this. And we can also pull down the hardness, but I'm going to keep this at 100 and I'll keep the size at around 100 as well. And then once you're happy with that, we'll just close that down. And then you just want to paint within the subject, so the person in frame that you want to move. Now, the problem with this quick selection tool is it is not perfect, but don't worry, that is completely fine. Once you've done your first pass of this quick selection tool, if we zoom into some areas, so we'll just go behind myself here, you can see it's overlapped and has included this lady in the background. So we're just going to paint over this, and that is going to deselect that area. Like so. And then you just want to move through the rest of your image and just move parts of the image, get rid of parts of the images that is not supposed to be there. Of course, though, as you can see, I've deleted this part of the photo and I need that part of the photo. So I'm just going to decrease the size of the brush. We'll hold it Shift on the keyboard and we're just going to paint that over, and that's going to include that back in the mask. Then you can just carry on and you can just delete any part of the mask that isn't supposed to be there. Just go through this, make sure you do a clean job of this. And then once you're happy with the look of that, we're just going to hold Command C and Command V, and that is going to paste that into its own layer. Now from here, you can just go in and you can clean anything up if you need to. So we'll go to the eraser tool. We'll pull the size down to a small number of around 15 and increase the hardness to 100. And then we can just go around and we can paint any part of the image out that is not supposed to be there. Now make sure you do a good job of this because there's no hiding from this later on. Essentially what we're doing is we're creating a background and a foreground layer. So when we stick these two together later on, if your foreground has got parts of the background in it, then you're definitely going to see that later on once we've added in that camera movements. So just go through it and make sure every part of that photo has been removed that is not supposed to be there. Then we'll turn our background layer back on. We'll turn off that isolated layer. We'll then hold Command on our keyboard and select layer 1, and that is going to bring up that mask again. Go back to layer 0. Then from there, you just want to go up into select, modify, and then we'll just do expand. And we'll just expand this by 20 pixels and press OK. So as you can see, that has expanded that mask outwards by 20 pixels all over the image. Now from here, we'll go up into edit. We'll go down to fill. Make sure content is selected to content aware, and then we'll press OK. So that's going to take a few seconds to do that, and once that's finished, there you go. That has filled in myself, that's filled in the person with this replicated background layer. Now, of course, at the moment, it does look really messy. So we're going to zoom into this with the clone stamp tool, and we're going to clean up any imperfections. So on the left side of Photoshop, we'll find the clone stamp tool. We'll increase the size and we'll decrease the hardness down to 0%. Now, the way the clone stamp tool works is you're essentially copying one part of the image onto another part of the image. And if we have our brush down to 0%, that means it's going to add a nice feathering and it's going to blend this together to look really nice. So select the background layer, we'll hold Option on our keyboard, and we're just going to hover over this area here. And then we'll just go over to the right and we'll just paint in here. So as you can see, it's copying this tree and it's adding it over onto the right. Now we'll just keep going through this process just to clean up this image, make sure it looks nice and clean. And then once you've got that looking roughly the way you want it to look, you can just go ahead and you can export these as two different layers. So we'll export the background layer on its own. So we'll go File, Save As. You just want to choose somewhere. So I'm going to put this on the desktop and add it to its own folder. So we'll go Moving Image, Create, and we'll rename this to Background. And then we'll save that as a JPEG image. Press Save, and we'll increase this quality slider all the way to the right at 12 at large file. Doing this essentially means it's not going to compress the image and we're going to get the highest possible resolution. Now from here, we'll turn on this layer and we'll turn off the background layer. So we've got myself on a PNG layer. File, Save As. We'll change the format to PNG. we'll go back into that folder that we were just in, and we'll rename this to foreground or subject or person, whatever you like, as long as you know that this is the foreground. Then we'll go into Premiere and we'll create a brand new sequence. So we'll go File, New, Sequence. And because my image was square, it had a 1:1 aspect ratio. I'm just going to go ahead and create a square composition. So we'll go frame size 1080 by 1080, and then everything else here is fine. Of course, though, if you've got a wider image, then you can set that to that correct aspect ratio, but I'm going to keep this as square for now. Then we'll go into the project tab and we'll drag those two images right into Premiere. So we'll drag those both in. So I've got our background and our foreground. We'll drag the background onto video layer 1. As you can see, it's a little bit large at the moment, so we'll pull the scale down to fit the frame. So we need to pull that to 54. Now make sure you keep a note of that number because you need to set that to your foreground element. We'll drag our foreground onto video layer 2, and we'll set this to 54, that same number. So as you can see, essentially what we've done is we've separated the foreground to the background so we can independently control the foreground and the background. Now from here, I'm just going to increase the background a touch. So we'll increase this to, let's say 60. We'll pull the position of this over to the left. So the blue line is just touching the left of the frame. We'll create a brand new keyframe on the position and we'll drag that to the beginning. Then we'll just drag the position over to the left. And then we'll just pull that keyframe to the very end. So the background is moving from right to left. There we go. And we're just going to do the opposite for the foreground layer. So the background starts here and travels to the left. We're going to do the opposite. So the subject is going to travel towards the right. So I'm going to drag myself towards the left to begin with. Create a brand new keyframe on the position, making sure that's at the beginning. Then we'll move towards the end and we'll drag the position over to the right. Drag that keyframe to the very end. And when we play this back, we've got this really nice parallax effect with the photo. Of course, you're not just limited to the position. You can adjust the scale or the rotation. So we'll go to the background layer, create a brand new keyframe on the scale at the beginning. We'll move towards the end and we'll increase the scale to 65. So you can see there's just enough scale to notice that. So we're increasing the scale on the background layer, so we'll decrease the scale on the foreground layer. So we'll create a brand new keyframe on the scale at the beginning. We'll increase the scale up to around 60. Then we'll move towards the end and we'll pull this down to around 50%. Drag that second keyframe over to match on the position and we'll pull the position down. Then we'll drag those both towards the end. And if we play this back, you will see we've got this really awesome parallax effect on our moving image. Of course, that is quite a drastic movement. You don't have to be as drastic with yours. So if you wanted to slow that down, you can just go somewhere in the middle, create a brand new keyframe on position, scale, delete those last keyframes, and then we'll move those new keyframes over to the right. So now we're moving a little bit more subtly. But there you go. That's the basics of how you can convert your still images into moving images and create a parallax within that movement right inside of Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support and I will see you on the next video. See you there.